And for this panel, we have some great speakers from, again, different backgrounds. So let me introduce them first of all to you all. So we have Jessica Whitehorn from Redwire Space. We got Ruslan Swinseki from 3D Serum. We have Catherine McCarthy. We have Mateusz Kiernkowski from Join the Space. And we have Julian Kaliski from Agile Space Industries. And Sean Ropan from Paragon Space Development Corporation. So dear panelists, welcome to the panel. It's great to see you all. Please, you can now unmute yourselves. You can start your videos and we can begin the panel discussion. Okay, let me make sure I've allowed all of you in.
Hello, Ruslan.
Hello, Ruslan. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Great to meet you, Sean, as well.
Yeah,
and I'm sure all of our panelists are inside. So Jaden Sage is also here from Celestial Ventures.
Hello.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, based on where you are. Let me promote Jessica here as well.
Hello.
All right, Jessica, how are you?
I'm good.
Perfect. Okay, so good. Everybody else is good. I think we all are set here. So we can go ahead with our panel discussion. We got some very interesting questions here to cover in this very important issue of the workforce development. That's really, again, the driving factor behind the space industry. So there is some noise, just a second. Let me fix that. Okay, perfect. All right, so we can move on to the first question, which my question will be, what are the key skills and competencies required for new space workforce as the space industry is constantly, again, evolving? So we'll be talking about the present and the future right now. And how can education and training programs be designed to develop the skills? So whoever would like to go ahead with this question first, and then obviously we'll get all of yours on that.
Yeah, so as nobody wants to stand out, I can start.
Sure, it is.
So in my opinion, like the skills required right now are the project management. I think it's really important as the industry is growing and we get a bigger and bigger project. The constellations and etc. are on trends right now. And I think that we need the managers and project managers for that have the experience in the industry, and project management would be a great skill for that. And as to how to gather the skill, I think it's very important to start already on the university when you can, for example, lead a science club and some university project. Maybe you're building a CubeSat or something like that. And you can get project management skills on that low level and then get more experience already in the job.
Perfect, awesome. So maybe, I see Ruslan wants to add up on that. So let's go ahead.
I just want to, from my perspective, so 3D Ceram, we are specialized in additive manufacturing for ceramics, so new materials, advanced materials, and the new space is about this. It's about new technologies and promotion of new techniques and new methods. So from additive manufacturing, which is procuring several components used in new space for the mini satellites, for other vehicles, what we see that we lack trained people who knows how to design to function, not only to manufacture. So these old school engineers, they are in different, there is some education to do. So for me, it's important, one of the key skills just to be able to design to function, which is the main let's say, the main topic of this new technologies used for the new space. So train new engineers, I mean, new generation engineers, and this comes also from universities, from specialized maybe programs for the additive manufacturing, not only for ceramics, but for all the materials, because all of us, we know what is additive manufacturing. So, but this is the real, the break now, I mean, to go far and to go quicker.
Perfect, awesome, and allow how we received a bit different responses from Ruslan and Mateusz also. Ruslan more of a technical aspect and Mateusz more of a non-technical a bit in terms of the project management. So I see Julia wants to add a few points here as well, so please go ahead.
I'll definitely add in a less technical side, and that is like definitely from our hiring process here at Agile. Like some skills that we look for is like extreme willing to learn, flexibility, especially in like a new space development or a new space startup, a flexibility to help other teams out and not just be confined to like what your skill set is specifically, and self-starter, like being able to start projects on your own is extremely crucial, especially in the new space area. If you hire a new member and you have to hold their hand the entire time, or have someone, a project manager who's already extremely spread thin with a big team and we're always working on projects, we definitely want minds who are more than willing to like kind of manage themselves, even if you're not a project manager. And I think that differentiates like new space from like the primes working for them, because I feel like in primes it's very set of like the things you're going to be doing and the skill sets you need, but in new space it's like a very different environment.
Absolutely. So independence and autonomousness. So that's a very important skill that they're looking at. So I would like to ask also Jessica, being a HR in Redwire. So what would be some of the specific skills, let's say both technical and non-technical, that Redwire would be looking for their new team members that when they run recruiting?
Yeah, I can only agree with you as well in terms of that, because we're in new space as well. So majority of our people are coming from outside of Europe. So we really can't hold their hands. They have to hit the ground running. So they have to be autonomous. And what we really are looking for is that passion, that drive. They need to think outside the box. And of course, they need to be technically competent. So it's a given that they have to be technically competent, because we just cannot have them coming in and not being able to do the job. So they have to be able to do the job. They're not going to leave India and come all the way to Luxembourg and not be technically competent, for example. So another thing we're looking for them to be is flexible, and we want them to be adaptable as well. And we really do want them to have passion, because you're not going to leave your home country and come to another country to be in new space if you don't have that passion and that drive. And when I'm speaking to them, I want to feel that passion, because if you're going to be in new space, you need to have that. And I need to feel that. I want to get that passion. I want to get that excitement, because when you're going to work on a robotic arm, or you're going to work on anything in space, sometimes it's going to break. You're going to be frustrated. So I want to see that determination as well. So those are the kind of soft skills that I'm looking for. The technical skills, I leave that to the hiring managers, especially for software or for electronics. They need to dig and deep into that kind of information. But as a HR person, I'm going into the behavioral things to find out what really drives them. Why do you want this job? And to really go into the deep matter about that.
Absolutely. So I love that, especially the point about the passion, as you said, because I personally believe space industry is the place where passions should be first and foremost, right? And very much prioritized. So I would love to get also Jaden's opinion on this, as being from more of a venture side. So what are some of the skills that Jaden, your venture capital, again, organization is looking at when, let's say, making investments, or what type of teams are you looking at before making investment? What are you looking for in the teams of the startups?
Right. So you can hear me, right?
Yes, we hear you well.
Okay, wonderful. So before we go into the venture side of this equation, which cuts into obviously the labor side of the equation, there's something that I've seen develop, or not develop, it's always been there in the space sector, which actually will need to change out if we're going to effectuate Space 2.0, because Space 1.0 was a directed attempt to achieve a military objective, which was to plant a flag and dominance over the heavens, if you will, for lack of better words. But passion in space is a 4-letter word, which basically means it's used as a way to drive you into a silo in a box or a cubicle where you're grinded for eternity. So passion coupled with the needs of the labor force of today need to be better balanced in order for Space 2.0 to grow. Let's peel the layers of that onion for a second. What's happened is that today's the generations coming online now, they're used to a world of social media. They're used to a world of recognition for who they are. Versus in the past, you got your PhD, you became a Mechie, and you got your Rolex after 40 years of nobody knowing you existing from a hole in the wall. That's not the world we live in. So you need to cater to the labor force of today in order to attract them into the space industry, because they have options. Back in the day, they may or may not have had the options. The sexy industry was the space industry. But today you have many sexy industries that are calling you. And if you're going to say that here you are, you must have passion. And because of that passion, we're going to nail you to the wall and expect you to work your life away and destroy yourself as part of that equation, then that's not going to be sufficient in order to drive Space 2.0. Because here's the key takeaway. Space 2.0 is competing with every other industry out there. And it is not a directed attempt or a mandate like John F. Kennedy stated back in the day. So it has to compete its way for the labor in the future and for now. And the only way it can do that is to fine tune itself to the needs of the labor force. Without a sufficient amount of labor force coming in, we're going to constantly be searching for good talent, which is going to be going to other industries.
That's a fair point that obviously I'm relating a lot with. I saw that Jessica had a hand raised, so you would like to add something, right? As I understand.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the passion front, but it also means how you package it. So it all depends on who is doing the interview and how the organization is well brand itself. So I get what you're saying on your idea of how you sell the passion. If you present your organization in a certain way and you don't brand yourself to the candidate, then of course, if you expect that you're going to say, oh, I'm great and I'm fantastic, it's not going to cut it. But, you know, I have interviewed candidates and they are showing, oh, look what I have developed and I've done that. And then that's how you latch onto it. And so it's a give and take. It's a carrot. It's a carrot stick initiative. So yes, I get what you're saying, that, you know, you can't expect that years ago, people are just going to be coming going, oh, space is lovely, because of course, no, it's not like that at all. So an organization has to brand themselves so that people are attracted to the organization and will want to come to it. So I will quantify what you have said.
Okay, so Jaden wants to reply to that as well.
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into a two-side debate, but I just want to make a small point there. It actually isn't about branding or the way it's presented. It's actually the tangible result that that talent gets by engaging with the company or the industry writ large. So it's more about what is being delivered to this new talent in terms of recognition, personal recognition, as well as the ability to not be caught up in a silo forever. So I think overall we are in agreement. It's just, it has to be more than what's branded, because once they're sitting in that cubicle, all that branding goes away and they are intelligent enough, that's why you hired them, for them to figure out whether they're getting the results they're seeking in their career. And if they're not, they're going to pivot. And God forbid, if they keep pivoting out of the space industry, Space 2.0 will only remain a vision.
All right, perfect. So With that, I think we can move to the next question, which is again more related towards the how can space industry attract and retain a diverse and inclusive workforce, right? So, and by diverse and inclusive, I don't only mean in terms of the race and gender, right? So obviously that's one part of it. I also mean how can space industry include more of the individuals coming from non-traditional backgrounds, right? Or maybe from adjacent industries. So who would like to go ahead with that first? I think Julia wants to go ahead.
I that's my story. I was not I'm not an aerospace engineer and I don't have an engineering background. My background is in design and marketing. And I slid into aerospace because of people I knew through social media, because I did a lot of outreach programs for younger kids. And I did videos talking about astronomy and stuff just because it was something I loved. So like, I think the way to develop that is like, we've captured that pretty well, and having the offering the opportunity, looking at candidates who are outside of just an aerospace background is a huge part of it that I see that a lot of companies might miss the opportunity on. You will find people who have a completely different attitude and drive when you're looking outside of just the specific degrees. If there's skill sets and they're willing to have like that 4-letter word passion for a topic, it goes a long way, and you build a team that wants to be in the company and not just there to climb a ladder to move into another position. And I think that's a benefit. But looking for those people, having the open minds to actually do that and not just saying like, oh, we want to have more people, but then always going back to the same place candidate pools, I think is the first step that I think a lot of people miss.
All right, so I see that St. Ro would like to add on that, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I did want to add on to what Julia said, because I'm also somebody who's not from an engineering background. I came from fashion. And I think sometimes I do hear that a lot, that the engineering department will be like, oh, we need to find more people who can do these certain skills. And then what comes to mind for me are people in other industries. And my personal story was that our school had held a fashion aerospace event where I met my supervisor right now on a panel. And I think it just needs a lot more collaboration between these companies outside of just STEM. And so, yeah, I just think it's like important to like look in different industries. Yeah.
Absolutely, perfect. So now we've discussed a bit of from the company perspective instead of in respect to hiring and acquiring the workforce. So now I would like to see more of let's look at it more from an individual side, right? Because individuals, they need to have some kind of their own personal job expectancy and what they are looking for as a job. And I do really believe that's very important in terms of them being able to find the job that fits them perfectly, right? In the respect to the what type of life balance they want with the work and other parts of the job that go into it, right? So what kind of culture of the company they are looking for. So maybe Katie, you can answer more to that, being a young professional. So what are some of the things that you are looking for when, let's say, looking for a job in the space industry? What are some of the main important aspects that the young professionals are looking for?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that the first thing that I've looked for in potential internships and jobs is a good mentoring program, because I found that that's the most reliable way to get a sense of belonging somewhere and make connections that really can keep you working in a place. So that's the first thing that I look for. And then the second thing is that as someone who does computer science, but also does environmental science, I look for places where I can kind of explore other areas while working on a main project. So I've found that at some of the places I've worked that's a lot easier than others. So I think that one way companies can help do that is by encouraging side projects and the exploration of other disciplines along with along with the main projects in an internship. So yeah.
All right, so I see Jessica has a hand up again. Please go ahead. I think you're on mute still. Yeah.
Well, I was just agreeing with Katie in terms of the internships, because that's one of the things that we really do encourage when we have interns, is to explore what it is that they expect to get out of the internship and try to match them up with a mentor in our company to ensure that they get the best out of the internship, because we really do want them to return, and we're trying to cultivate the next set of engineers for the future. So we really do encourage that. So I'm really emboldened that that is something that interns are looking for, and that we're on the right track.
Awesome. So I think Jaden wanted to add to that point as well. Yep.
So I just wanted to add that the industry is quite lopsided right now, because it's represented by at least, it's probably higher, but 80-20 split on the gender imbalance. So we need a lot more women in this industry, because it's abysmal, to be honest with you. And the way you change that, going back to the point being made, that in order to have the mentor that you can relate to, you need to have a female mentor, for not necessarily, but it helps. And that can only be driven by aggressively, and the industry as a whole, we all have to come collectively and address this challenge. Now, I know we've been trying to do this through STEM, but perhaps STEM education, but perhaps we're going to have to recruit enough women from other industries to come into this industry in order to create that balance, which will create that self-fulfilling cycle of having more women being the mentors of younger women, in order for us to achieve that balance. Because unless we achieve balance, gender equality in this industry, it's going to remain lopsided, and we're literally missing half of the planet's input into the greatest journey humanity is about to take. And that in itself is comical, because we need to fix that swiftly.
Absolutely. So now in the next, I think, yeah. So, okay. So now the next point that I would like to move this towards, because I see there's a lot of questions also from the audience in terms of the future of the space workforce and how it will change with the time. But until we get to that, so one thing that I wanted to talk about now is the thing that some of the companies, especially in some areas, if we're talking about satellite operators, they're finding it hard to recruit the right candidates, especially the software side of things, right? Software skills are a bit behind. So how do you see the private companies and governmental agencies cooperating with educational institutions to foster this and minimize and bridge the skill gap that currently is in the industry? So who would like to go ahead with that? Right, no volunteers, as I see.
Can you re-ask that question?
Absolutely. So we're seeing that in some areas, space industry companies are having problems of finding the right candidates with the right skill set. So how do you see the companies and government agencies can cooperate with educational institutions and academia in order to bridge that gap in those specific skills in those segments for individuals?
Yeah, I mean, academia is having that same challenge, because they're traditionally reaching out to create new people in STEM industry. We're gonna have to learn to recruit from other industries and bring those people in. So if you have software expertise, but you work at Google, we're gonna have to somehow make space attractive. My original point on the passion being a 4-letter word was that we the space industry rely too much on passion as a way to get you in. Now think about this for a moment. If our industry gave you an excellent work environment, gave you enough money that you never dreamed of making, and then you could have flexibility in your job, you had the ability to take Fridays and explore other options. That would be such an amazing, rewarding career, right? Well, guess what? The companies like Google, Facebook, they all have that. They may be suffering right now, but they all have those criterias. And that's why we're losing people. Kids don't wake up, and say, we need to be in this industry or that industry. You attract them. And the setups we have don't facilitate that level of attraction. And that's why the space industry automatically leans on passion, because it already knows that it suffers on those attractants. So it says you must have passion and you're going to pay a price for that passion. If you didn't have passion, you would still have a truckload of people coming into space if it had all those attractants.
I agree with that point, Jason, absolutely. So, and what would you reckon would be possible strategies for attracting more individuals into the space industry? So would you place that upon, let's say, company responsibilities, for example, to be actively communicating with the general audience, or would you put that more on the governmental agency side or academia side? Where would you see that falling into?
Everything leads through industry that goes forward without infusion of massive amounts of capital. That's where we need governments. The heavy lifting on the capital infusion comes from the governments at this point, but believe it or not, it also comes, I have an office in Silicon Valley, so I'm quite aware of the dynamics there. And a long time ago, it was the government's infusion. NASA Ames Research Center was there. There was full force support through Stanford in order to create that industry. So in the beginning you need it, but then industry takes the helm and then continues forward. So it's gonna be the industry that creates the attractants. And also the industry itself is too reliant on government contracts in order to grow its business model. So it's, again, a self-fulfilling cycle. That's the problem, because if a startup or an company has enough revenue models where it is not dependent upon government contracts, it can create enough cash flows within its stream to give people Fridays off, to give them $300,000 salary rather than the $75,000 starting engineer salary. So those come from industry. We should not, again, lean to the government in order to get that. There is too much leaning here and there in our industry that needs to be fixed. Vis-a-vis other industries, there is way too much leaning in ours.
That's a fair point. Do we have maybe any different opinion among the panelists, or everybody is fine with that idea?
I'm gonna agree with you in this. I've definitely seen with the younger generation, my friends and coworkers and people coming out of school who are leaving as software engineers, looking at different industries and passing up aerospace because they can look at a software engineering position for the exact description you gave. They can get paid 3 times the amount, their life's easier, they do less work. And it's just very enticing. Why work so hard for less when you can work less for more? And it's very hard. So it's a thing that I see probably several times a week with conversations with people. It's so I agree completely.
Perfect. So the next point here that I have is now, as we see mainly, especially in the government agencies, all of the jobs, basically, they're starting from a master's degree and going forward from that. And in some companies as well, that's a very strict requirement. So how do you think moving forward, do you believe companies will have to adapt and become more flexible and pay more attention to the hard and soft skills of the individual rather than the academic background? So what would be your views on that? I would love to learn that.
So I think that the academic background is losing its power, at least in Poland. It's more important to have an experience already. Someone with 2 years of experience, much more valuable, and engineering degree than someone with no experience and master degree. And you can guide him to the position that he wants. You can learn him new skills already in the company, and you are not based on some skills that he gained in university that may probably not be that useful in the company later on. Maybe the general knowledge would be useful, but as far as I can see that the universities and the curriculum in the universities is not catching up with the industry needs, and it takes time to change the curriculum in the university, and the new space is very fast moving industry, and it's hard to get up. So I think it's more valuable to get an experience right now.
Perfect. So I see Ruslan wants to add on that.
Yeah, that what we experienced in the collaboration with all these new space startup companies, that it's all about the project and to get to the goal. I mean, startup companies are founded, at least in Europe, by small teams of 20 people, maybe 30 people. And what we see that the skills they have are not enough, are not ensured by the academia. So it's a lot about experience, but it's a lot about the project and the goal and the passion Jessica was talking about. Because if you have this passion to get to the goal, you will succeed. And all the differences, I mean, sex, orientation, religion, skin color, all are irrelevant. So the job has to be done, and this is very important. So what we see that the experience is much more important than the background, educational background.
Awesome, perfect. So Julia wants to go ahead.
Controversially, but I do not have a degree. I did not go to university. So the advantage to that is I have way more years of experience than most people my age. I have a much larger portfolio, which is how I won the jobs that I win. And it has been coming from that background. I think it's extremely valuable for companies to pick and choose. Obviously, I do not have an engineering position. So I was self-taught and did internships with design and marketing and advertising. And I was able to get the same positions and that other people coming out of university did. So it depends on the position, but I think the flexibility on the company, depending on the job, is extremely important.
Jessica wants to go ahead.
Yeah, I can only, I was going to quantify what both Julia and Roshan said, because it's really is dependent on the job. It's always competency based. I cannot really emphasize that enough. So depending on the job, depending on the profile, depending on the project, then it will be competency based. So we can't really say experience, education, qualification. It will really depend on the job description and what it is that the hiring manager wants. Because sometimes qualification is a must, because if you need an electronics engineer, I think you will need a qualification. But if you need an AIT technician, then possibly a qualification is not necessary, but the experience will be what is required. So it really depends, especially for new space and for a startup. Sometimes the projects will require people who have got, more experience for a particular job. So it all depends.
That's right. That's absolutely spot on. That it varies case by case, obviously depending on the position. So that's a fair point. So another thing that's again is Jaden was comparing space industry to different industries out there. So one of the things that the space industry is lagging behind compared to other industries is the training programs that the companies are imposing again on their employees, which I believe is very important. So especially the younger startups, they don't really have strong training programs in place. So first of all, how important do you feel that is for the companies to put that in place if they want to, again, really upskill their workforce? And how do you believe they can prioritize that with the, let's say, lower budget, say, that some of the startups have? So how would you prioritize that for the startups? Maybe Jaden can go ahead with that.
So this is going to be a mixed bag, but all right, academia, we have to go back and introspect what academia is actually teaching in the space sector, qualified subjects, because if they're teaching from the past, and then those students come out, then they're not equipped to deal with not just their industry's future, but the competitive landscape of other industries. So what's being taught is becomes a challenge. It has to become more relevant to today's industries. And I'll just use a quick example on that. Like think of a journalist, somebody who's majoring in journalism. They come out. How come everybody who comes out with a journalism degree doesn't automatically become a superstar reporter or something, right? Like, why does that happen? Why do they get siloed? Because the way our structure in academia is set up is to create a large pool of workers. And that is something that has not been tweaked for the space industry. So they're automatically created to be drones in large corporations. So when you have that, you're not going to have enough industry trailblazers, renegades, who will come out and be able to come up with new concepts. You'll just have large companies. Large companies move like aircraft carriers. Small companies move like speedboats. And it takes 3 days to turn an aircraft carrier, make a U-turn. So it's a different approach, and we need a little bit of a change out there. And that's what's going to allow across the board changes for providing the companies the ability to change how they structure the training programs for their people. Because if you come out of academia having learned Space 1.0, and then that training may not be sufficient to gear you up for Space 2.0.
All right, perfect. So I see we're also slowly approaching the end of the panel. So there's a question from the audience. So I would like to get maybe a few individuals, or hopefully everybody's couple sentences on that. So what are the panel's view on how the space workforce will change and develop going forward? So that's a question from the audience. So maybe starting from Sinro, we can just go ahead and get a couple words or a couple sentences from each panelist. Yeah, I think
Sorry,
yeah.
I was having
Apologies.
trouble unmuting. Oh my gosh.
problem.
So the question was how we
Yeah,
think
how do you see the space workforce moving forward to change and develop? So how do you see in the future the changes and developments?
So I think I do see that the Space Force will begin to diversify a lot more right now, because they're taking on people like me from a fashion background to make spacesuits, and also people like, I have a coworker who comes from background of like making upholstery for cars and things like that. And so and then we're slowly working towards learning new softwares, like there'll be SolidWorks, AutoCAD, Rhino, stuff like that. I think that's very important to be adaptable in and learn new technologies. Especially, we've seen such a big pivot from the COVID era and everything going digital. So just remaining, diversifying and being adaptive to new technologies.
Perfect. All right. So Mateusz, what would you comment on this, on the workforce changing and developing moving forward?
Yes, I would agree, and that the flexibility is important, and especially in the new space industry, as was said before, that you are touching a lot of areas. You can have a different background, but you still need to touch on an engineering side, and the workforce has to learn how to develop new skills, how to get how to gather the new skills, learn how to use the softwares, and yeah. So I think the flexibility is a good point for that.
Perfect. So Jessica, what would be your comment to summarize?
Well, I think we probably need to find more ways of getting the non-traditional roles to be more remote and hybrid, because software roles, yeah, they can be remote working, but some roles like mechanical engineering and probably electrical engineering. Those are the kind of roles that tend to be office-based. So we have to get more creative to see how we can allow these individuals to hybrid work when it's possible. We have been very creative at our Luxembourg office in doing that, but I think the industry as a whole probably need to try and find a way to be a lot more creative in allowing people that right, because the other industries are able to do that. And that's probably where we're losing out, as Jaden has pointed out, that people are looking for that kind of flexibility, and we have to be able to adapt. Otherwise, we will be losing talent a lot more. We have seen that, or we have been very fortunate, I can touch wood, that our attrition rate is almost 0 in our Luxembourg office. So we hope that we can maintain that. That's because we've been very flexible and been able to do that. But I think the industry as a whole need to be able to see how we can be adaptable and flexible in the roles going forward.
Perfect. So Ruslan, what would be your comments?
I think for me, it will be synergy with the other industries. So these more hybrid competencies are very important, because we miss some skills, and the specialization, the background of some engineers is not enough. I mean, from academia, so they have to be more universal, maybe touching different fields. And these inputs from other industries is very important for the future development of skills.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And Katie, so we can summarize with you.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things going forward is to provide spaces where people can do things in between disciplines, like we've been talking about, since a lot of times those kind of interactions between disciplines kind of happen on the sidelines. So I think that making official spaces for that kind of collaboration to happen is going to be really important.
Perfect, amazing. So, okay, so on that, I would like to conclude the panel and obviously thank all the panelists for all the valuable insights that they provided, and really discuss the core of the problems with the workforce development that we're facing, and also plotted some of the strategies that can be used in terms of mitigating and solving those issues currently that we have. So thank you all once again. We would be honored again to see you next year, and hopefully by next year we're going to have some of those problems solved and we'll have new problems to worry about, right? So thank you all once again.